Okay, good luck. Did Navy give you the new pen?
Haven't yet.
You need to put it on.
Oh, all right.
I like it.
Yeah, right.
Well, he told you what he wanted to do. You went this week.
Is it related to the shark fin?
Oh, it's doing it there. Yes.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Sorry we're getting a little bit of a late start. We had a little problem with the computer. Oh, and the microphone.
That was me. I'm talking into it.
My name is Rebecca Matson, and I'm a collection development librarian at Cleveland Marshall College of Law.
And I'm Sue Altmeyer, and I'm digital content librarian at Cleveland Marshall College of Law.
And so today we're going to talk about a project that kind of landed in our laps a couple years ago, and it's been quite a ride, and it's not over yet. And so we're going to talk about what we've done so far and what we have yet to do. We're going to start with a little bit of a video clip that those of you who were here in the very beginning got to preview. Hopefully I can play this.
Ladies and gentlemen, I need to ask you what kind of a man would go into a woman's bedroom in the middle of the night and strike her violently 27 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27.
Oh,
27 times. Is it a burglar or is it an enraged husband? That's the question you'll have before you.
So that little video is part of our collection, and that man is Bill Mason. He was the Cuyahoga County prosecutor who prosecuted or defended the state of Ohio in a civil case in 2000. That's where this clip is from. The case itself started in 1954 and is the basis of our collection. Just going to give you a little background into what we have. You can see over here, these are the boxes that we have. This is the signing when Bill Mason, the dean of our law school, signed the contract for us to receive this gigantic collection of papers. And I'm gonna tell you what the papers are, don't worry. That's kind of like in the next slide, so it's a little out of order. But there are over 60 boxes worth of stuff. Some of it's papers, some of it's videos, some of it's microfilm, some of it is some objects. And I think when we finally did the final calculation, pieces of paper, there were over 77,000 pieces of paper that we were under contract to digitize and make available to the public on the web and in person in 18 months. So the scanning portion of our project, the digitizing part, we had to do in 18 months, which we did. And that's what we're talking about today. So it's a little, okay. So this is the case. Like I said, it started in 1954. Marilyn Sheppard, she's right here, she was found murdered in her bedroom July 4th, 1954. So the 60th anniversary of that is coming up. And at first there was a search, who did this. As you saw in the clip, Bill Mason said hit her violently 27 times. Eventually they arrested her husband, Sam. He was a doctor in Bay Village, very prominent doctor in a suburb of Cleveland. And his trial was this huge media circus. Before they even got to the trial, the coroner had an inquest at the local high school, and he basically declared that Sam Sheppard was guilty of murdering his wife. And then it went to trial, and it was in the papers, all of the papers. They were there every day. Sam appealed his sentence, and in 1966, the Supreme, was it this decision in 1966? 65? Four.
It wasn't 66, was the Supreme Court decision, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court of the United States said that he was not able to receive a fair trial because of all the media attention that surrounded his case. And they released him. The prosecutor's office tried him again, so that's the 1966 trial, so we have all the stuff from that too. And this guy is a guy who is kind of related to the case, but he didn't actually, well, we don't know if he actually did it or not, but they didn't think he did. And then in 1966, the jury acquitted him. So he died a few years later. No one legally really knows if he killed her or not. In 1999, his son brought a lawsuit against the state of Ohio for wrongful imprisonment, seeking some monetary damages and a declaration of innocence. Bill Mason, the prosecutor who was in the video, defended the state of Ohio, and Sam Sheppard Jr. lost that case. They did not declare his father innocent, nor did they necessarily declare him guilty. I guess it's inference. So that's the basis of the case. In preparing for the 2000 trial, the prosecutor amassed a large amount of documents, and that is what he gave to our library. There are documents from the 54 trial, the 66 trial, the 99, 2000 trial, where they did extra tests and whatnot, so it's a huge amount of stuff. So when we first started, we thought we would do an inventory, so we didn't really know what we were doing, and we started with this inventory, which our associate director basically took what the prosecutors had given us as an inventory, put it in a spreadsheet, and we kind of looked through some stuff and counted some pages, kind of. So we had this kind of not really very helpful inventory. And a year ago, it was actually right before this conference a year ago, that I was starting to pull out my hair because we had to scan it and we didn't have an appropriate identifying inventory. So we started to sit down and figure out what we really needed in our inventory of the collection before we could start to scan. We wanted it to be a finding aid for not only what we had on the computer, but also what we had in the print collection. We needed it to be standardized because there were a ton of us working on it, and what I think is some type of expert witness statement, someone else might not think is the same thing. So we needed standard document types. We put in the file names. We counted all the pages. Each individual item got its own name. We took, it's right there, we took the box number and the item number and stuck a brief description on it and created a file naming convention for each item. So Sam Gerber was the coroner in 1954. His statement, the file name is 22_4, Gerber's statement. That will tell you, if you're coming in to look in the print collection, that you can find that in box 22, and it's item number 4. Same thing if you're coming in to look at our digital collection, it's going to be in the folder named box 22, and it's going to be item number 4. And then you can find it from the file name. As you can imagine, doing this for so many boxes took a very long time. We were inventorying and scanning at the same time. Some of us were inventorying, some of us were scanning.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. And this is what we came up with in the end. You can see this, we inserted this column here. So we had a file item number column. And then everything looks exactly the same all the way across. And then who scanned this? So Sue scanned this, those are her initials. And that took, you can see kind of from the bottom, just a sampling of how many boxes that we had. Is that on?
Yeah, I just turned it on.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So we used, once we got things inventoried and we started to get them scanned, we had this process. We had 2 computers and 2 scanners. One computer was hooked up to a flatbed scanner. That's the Epson scanner. And then the other computer was hooked up to a document feeder, which is the Fujitsu document feeder scanner. I put the specs up on here. I will say the Fujitsu was a disappointment. So if anyone has any large digitization projects, don't get that scanner. It broke in the middle of our scanning. So that was kind of a problem. We also used batch processes to save some time. We converted everything from TIFF to PDF and TIFF to JPEG in a batch process. Same thing with OCR. And we learned a lot about the different settings for black and white versus grayscale. And a lot of the documents that we had were originally scanned on like a Xerox copier, so they were scanned in black and white, and they've got all kinds of marks all over them, and they're really bad quality, so we would scan them in grayscale just to kind of be able to clean them up a little bit better than having them in just black and white. Here's an example of some of the crazy stuff that we have. This is the coroner's scrapbook. He kept a scrapbook of all of the news clippings from the case, and we haven't scanned this. If anyone has any ideas on what would be a super easy way to scan this, we would really welcome those. They've kind of been sitting there and we've left them for last because it's a mess and we didn't know what to do. So, like I said, if anyone has any ideas, we are really open to that. And then we had these items, and in the end, we know how we're going to scan these, but at first they were kind of off-putting. The first one is a portion of direct examination of one of the police officers involved in the 54 investigation. And it's got all these sticky notes on the side, so you can't put it through the document feeder, and the prosecutor wants to keep the sticky notes, and they really don't look like they're terribly important, but they are to him, so we had a student scan it on the flatbed, each page. So, and that right there is polygraph, Richard Eberling, who was kind of sort of a suspect, but maybe not really, we're not really sure. That was his polygraph. It's really a terrible quality that you can't quite see in this picture, and it's really, really long. So that we're going to try to take apart each page and scan each one. The problem is they're kind of adhered to each other in such a way that they may have to be cut with a knife. But we know what we're going to do for that. That's my portion. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sue.
Okay. Just a curiosity question. Before you came to this presentation today, or before you read the Cali program, who had heard of the Sam Sheppard case? Actually, a lot of you. I was going to say, how many people have heard of The Fugitive, the TV show?
We know him better as Richard Kimball, yes.
Richard Kimball, yes, the one-armed man, but in Sam Sheppard's case, it was the bushy-haired man. I guess The Fugitive people claim that they didn't take the story from Sam Sheppard, probably because they didn't want to pay the Sheppard family any money, but everybody thinks they most likely did. So, okay, so what I'm going to talk about now is the platform. What platform did we decide to put this collection on? Because we wanted to put some of this stuff on the web. So what did we decide to put it on? We were looking at Digital Commons, which is made by bpress, Content DM, Omeka, and DSpace. Okay, if you read the program description, you will see that what we decided on was Digital Commons. We had already been using Digital Commons for our institutional repository to contain our faculty works, to contain our law review and our law journals and all of that. To be honest, I wasn't so sure about using it as a platform for a collection of this type, a collection of documents from a case and photographs from a case and how all that was going to work, because the Digital Commons platform was not really created for that purpose. But so far it's worked out pretty well. So if you want to go on the web and look at our site, it's engagescholarship.csuohio.edu/Sheppard. So you can look at all the cool things we have on there. Omeka and DSpace, those being open source platforms, we kind of decided that it would require more IT involvement than our IT staff had time to do. So even though they have a lot of wonderful features and flexibility and Web 2.0 things and tagging and whatnot, we decided we either needed to go with using Digital Commons or Content DM. Okay, so here's kind of our running list of the various factors we considered. Ease of use, for us anyway, since we had been using Digital Commons, it was pretty easy for us to kind of pick it up and use that. Content DM, there's more of a learning curve. Survey again, how many people here use Digital Commons? Yeah, quite a few, maybe about half. And how many people use Content DM? No one? Nobody uses Content DM. What do you guys all use? DSpace or something? Or
DSpace.
DSpace? Okay. How many DSpace? Just curious. One. Okay. Anyway, okay, I'll just move on with enough with the survey then. Okay, so cost. As far as cost goes, here's some cost figures that we're in Ohio, so we're part of the Ohio Link Consortium. A lot of people purchase Content DM through a consortium, as we do. You can see the price varies depending on how many items you're going to have on it. It's not cheap, but compared with the cost of Digital Commons, for us, it costs us about, I believe, $26,000 a year for Digital Commons, and then more on top of that for selected works. So at a certain point, even if you get the 50,000 plus items here with Content DM, I think maybe like 3 years into it, Digital Commons is definitely going to be more costly. However, the level of what you get with Digital Commons, you get a lot more as far as sort of a, I don't want to say canned because that sounds so negative, but I'm not thinking of another word, so I'll just say canned. Like canned, programs and formats that you can use. There's a lot of cool features. They have a lot of support. Well, I'll get into that more with my slides here. Actually, I was going to go out to the web and kind of look at these. Here's another site that uses Digital Commons kind of for the same purposes for an archival collection of, a trial. This is kind of what inspired us, this Louisiana State University Law School's Nuremberg collection. And that's a really cool collection if you go on and look at that. Let me see if I could just pop out to the web and start showing you some of these various things. Okay. So here's our Sheppard site. It's not showing up. Okay. Should I try on here and just switch back and forth? Huh, I wonder why. Okay. I will try this, and then if not, we will just go on with the slideshow. Oh, ranking. You don't want to see our ranking. Okay, sorry about this. Okay, and then on here, how would I switch to this screen? Do you know? Room computer? Ah, okay. Well, you can see it on that tiny one over there. Center, yeah, just put it on center. But just put it on the center one is good enough. Okay. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Thomas, our fabulous IT director. Yay! Okay. All right. So here is the Sam Sheppard case. We have quite a few items on there already, but we have a lot more things that we want to put on here. Just to show you kind of some cool features of Digital Commons. In Digital Commons, they have a document series. You're probably familiar with these because these are the type of series that you use for faculty articles. And if I pull one of these up, it's kind of cool. It can automatically have this little copy at the bottom, and you don't even have to download it. So that's kind of neat. And there's RSS feeds and all kind of fancy things on here. Well, as you guys probably know, because many of you are Digital Commons users. Okay, so that's a document series. There's also series of photographs. There's not very much in this one, but we could use, there's various views. It has a really cool looking slide. I think this slideshow feature is so cool. Yeah, these are kind of grisly photos a little bit. You could see the 27 times she's being hit, the bloody pillow and whatnot, and we will be putting more on there. There's all kind of crime scene photos and everything, and there's still more that we have yet to put on here. If you look at an individual photograph, the system automatically puts this photograph into different sizes for the users to download. It even has a geolocator if you so want to do that, you know. Okay. The last series I'm going to show you on here is a book series. That's a great thing to use for a trial transcript if you want to put trial transcripts. As Becky said before, we actually have 3 trial transcripts for this case. We have a coroner's inquest. Well, I guess that's an inquest transcript, not really a trial. We have a 54 trial and a 66 trial. So I use this book series, and for each volume of the transcript, where I'm making that a book, as you can see here. And if I open up one of these, you could download the full text of this volume if you want, or we broke it down into different pieces, parts here, by, you know, depending on who's testifying, so you could download that. One of the initial concerns, I guess, that we had with Digital Commons was, well, you seem to have these rigid series, right? You have a series for photographs, you have a series for documents. What if you want to mix these different types of things together? Well, it can be done. For example, here, if you use a book series, all these individual items, they could be whatever file type you want. They could be a document, they could be a photograph, they could be whatever. They could be go to a video, whatever you want. And here I have a little, this is like where your book jacket would be if you had one, but I'm using a little picture of that's Dr. Lester Adelson that testified at the trial. That's one way. Another way you could kind of mix formats is by using, if you use your photograph series, and we haven't done it yet, but it can be done. You can just attach a file, like a PDF file or something, onto this photograph that might explain something about the photograph. Okay, while I am here, let's see, so if I show you a site that was made with Content DM, Cleveland Memory, this is a project that our main library does, and the law school helps with the legal stuff. Browse web exhibits. It's a project called Legal Landmarks in Cleveland, famous cases that originated in Cleveland. Okay, so here's Sheppard versus Maxwell. So what you do for a Content DM site is you can basically, have like just an HTML front page, design that however you want, huge flexibility in that, of course. And then, I could click on something that's linked here, and it's going to pull up a bunch of photographs. There's mostly photographs in this collection of Mayor Hauk, who was the mayor of Bay Village during the time of the murder, and at one point he was a suspect and everything. There were lots and lots of, not an actual suspect I should say, but some people thought he did it. So they thought he was having an affair with Marilyn, the wife. So this case, there's lots of twists and turns to this case, and it was difficult for us when we were doing this and scanning this, to pay attention to what we were doing sometimes and not getting into the facts of the case. But anyway, okay, so Content DM, you could kind of see the layout. Personally, I guess I like the layout of the Digital Commons better. I thought it was cleaner. I mean, I guess here you get to see the metadata up front. So this was some kind of things when we decided that whether to go with one or the other. I mean, I guess the big factors were really, we're kind of paying for Digital Commons already, and we would have had to buy another instance of Content DM because we really couldn't use main libraries because it was branded for them. So that was a huge factor. The cost and the branding was a huge factor, but we thought of a bunch of other stuff too as far as where to put this thing. So at this point, I'm going to attempt to go back to the slideshow. We'll see if this works. Hopefully, okay, then I have to go to this one, right? Yeah, and okay, what do I do here? If I main menu, right, and laptop, and then send to center. Is that what I do? Did it work? No. I'll let you do it. You have the magic touch. No, we don't. Maybe someday. Any questions so far while we're waiting to yeah, Ken.
Susan, do you have an archivist? Two-part question. Do you have an archivist on staff?
No, that would be us. We're the archivists.
Does either of you have formal training in being an archivist?
We're self-trained.
We're self-trained.
And did you consult or consider consulting an outside professional archivist as you developed this collection?
We did
We
that.
actually did.
Yeah.
We actually did consult with the university's archivist.
Yeah, and we talked to
And we talked to a friend of mine from a long time ago is an archivist in New York State, and we've also spoken to her many, many times.
And did you find these conversations useful with these various people?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
I mean, personally, I would say that my conversations with my friend were more fruitful than the conversations with the university archivist, but they also do completely different things. He works more with the print things, and what she does is this. Only they use Content DM.
Yeah, Content DM, okay, I'll say something about that, I guess. I'm not sure what you're getting at with your questions. Have you found them to be helpful?
No,
or
I'm
not
looking for
helpful, or?
insight in projects
Or whether
like
you
this.
should
and
do
just,
it?
occurs to me that one would involve an archivist if possible somewhere along the way, since many of us who are trained as librarians did not get any kind of training as archivists. And now Cincinnati had an archival librarian with some formal training before I got there. And she's not there, and she hasn't been there since before I got there. So we don't have a professional archivist on staff. We do have a staff member who's managing the law school archives, and there are other things we have to consider doing as well.
Well, I can say that as far as we were concerned, we really did try to teach ourselves as much as we could. I've also gotten involved with the Ohio Historical Society and the Society of Ohio Archivists. I'm a member of the Society of Ohio Archivists, even though I'm not an archivist. But that they have a lot of helpful resources as well. So in Ohio, you can check them out.
Thanks.
Okay. And I will say, like, when I was doing comparing these platforms, like, I kind of called around and, what's that? Oh, Was there a question?
There was.
Is there still a
There
question?
is still a question.
Okay, what's the question?
How did you guys decide what you were going to use in the way of metadata on this? Are there standard archival encoding schemes that you're using? Did you extend that with use cases in mind? Did you ask discipline specialists? Although who would that be for this? I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, mostly what we did, if we had our cataloging librarian kind of work up a basic structure for the metadata. We were using a controlled vocabulary for keywords, sort of based on Library of Congress, but we kind of made up our own, really, that was really particular to the trial itself. The various metadata involved, like, the people involved, could be the various courts, legal issues, particular objects or pieces of evidence that were important, like forensic and scientific issues. So that's basically, do you have anything? That's basically what we did.
That and the document type. We assign specific document types outside of what BPress normally uses. They usually use article and other things for faculty.
Right.
And so we added police report and witness statements and crime scene photos and that, so it can sort by that document type.
Did you try modeling the trial process at all?
Like the different stages of the trial.
Yeah.
When, like right now when we're doing like the various, like the pretrial motions for the civil case, like the 2000 wrongful imprisonment case, yeah, we are kind of making different document types based on like different types of motions and stuff. Other than that, I guess not really. Yeah.
It sounds like you guys kind of handcrafted your own metadata.
We did, pretty much.
How could you make sure that that this stuff was discoverable, that it was like interoperable and people could get to it?
Well, I guess as far as discoverability goes, in the Digital Commons platform, they do a lot for you, I guess, with search engine optimization and stuff like that. And I mean, I guess we're going to have a key as far as what the controlled vocabulary is. But I mean, really the stuff that's on Digital Commons is really highly discoverable. I mean, I've noticed that with the faculty articles and stuff, that if you put one of those in, it comes up right away. I guess as far as interoperability, do you mean like with a catalog, like transferring it to a catalog or something? Because you can do that from Digital Commons. You're able to transfer those records into a catalog such as WorldCat. So I mean, that's possible. So I think it is easier to do with, like, you see this little slide that talks about content DM. And I was told by archivists, as Ken was pointing out, and people that maybe do this more than we do, that really for metadata, content DM is a little better. It's maybe has more interoperability with a catalog, but it seemed to us that the Digital Commons platform was, just fine or okay for those purposes. So does that answer your question? I think
so, yeah.
Okay.
I just had one other thing to add on to that. We did do a lot with the keywords and the controlled vocabulary, and that's because when you pull up a picture and it's got keywords on the side, and then you just go click on the keyword that we've assigned to it, and everything else in the entire collection that has that keyword assigned to it also shows up. So that's why we've been pretty meticulous with having a very controlled, very specific vocabulary.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you say you were OCRing the documents as well?
Yes.
We did, yeah. We batch OCR'd it, and when you go on to Digital Commons, it does go in and search the full text of all those documents. Although some of them, they were older documents, and some of them did not OCR very well at all. I don't know if at some point we'd go in and try and do, like, I don't know, an XML markup or something to get to those points where the OCR didn't work very well. I'm guessing probably not. but it's a thought, and a lot of it did, especially the stuff, of course, from the 2000 trial, like, that stuff OCR great, so it's very searchable. Any other questions? Okay. So we will proceed on. Transferability, we kind of talked about that. Oh yeah, we talked about that too. Data storage, either platform really you can have hosted if you want to. And tech support, I mean, those of you that have worked with BPress, you know that their support is awesome. Their structure seems somewhat rigid, but if you tell them what you want to do, I mean, they'll really help you. Yeah, they'll really help you work around whatever the problem is to what you need to do. Here's just a little, this chart just kind of goes into detail with the comparison if that's useful for anybody. At this point, I was going to okay, I'm doing good on time. I was going to talk a little bit about problems that I had with the Digital Commons platform and using it for this purpose, and how BPress helped me around those problems. One problem is that Digital Commons typically sorts just by year, not by exact date. But if you ask them, they will sort it by exact date, which is really important for an archival historical collection like this. As Becky was saying before about the different document types, in this particular series we have document types by court numbers, because there were various appeals in this case, so you could split it out like that. Another problem that existed is publication date in Digital Commons is a required field, so you have to put something in at least a year. In this huge collection that we have items that are undated, so we were like, well, what do we put in? So as you can see, we ended up putting in 9999 just for a placeholder. We should and we could actually just show this field on the back end. And then for date, you could put in undated, or you could put in a range of dates, 1954 to 1955, 1950s, whatever. So that's kind of one additional problem that they helped us around. I talked about the different mixing formats before. Another difficulty that we ran into was we really kind of wanted to keep the site somewhat confidential until it was released. Digital Commons being designed for open access really wasn't about that at all. So, I mean, I guess we just worked it the best we can. Before we put up the site, we just put a lot of stuff on metadata spreadsheets and got it ready, and then built the actual site. Didn't link it anywhere. And for a while, it seemed that like people weren't discovering it, but now we have people from the UK that want to test Sheppard blood samples, so they're looking at it.
Those, by the way.
Yeah, we don't.
Have
Yeah, we don't have any of the physical. We just have documents and photographs. So as far as content considerations, what should we put on this site? Of course, we wanted things that would be interesting to people. You don't want to just put up like a motion for extension of time or something totally court document that's totally boring. Copyright issues. There was a whole box of like books about the case. There's, gosh, over 10 books that have been written about this case. Of course, we couldn't put that on the web. Newspaper articles, as Becky mentioned, the whole U.S. Supreme Court case was all about the news and how the judge didn't protect Sam Sheppard from all the publicity, or protect the jurors from all this publicity that was going around about Sam Sheppard. If you read those stacks and stacks of newspapers that were in those coroner scrapbooks, there's just tons of articles like this. Quit stalling, bring them in, someone is getting away with murder. All these articles like this, the newspapers were basically saying he's guilty, so everybody in Cleveland thought he's guilty. But anyway, it would be cool if we could put some of these newspaper articles on the website, but we would have to try and get copyright permission first, of course. If you look at the site, this is a really interesting series on the site. A lot of people wrote letters to the coroner or the police department or whatever, offering their tips to solve the case. Or there's even pictures of the murder weapon, or and just crazy stuff, and people confessing, or all sorts of things. So to protect the innocent or not so innocent, we blacked out the names of the people writing these things. And sometimes we blanked out the names of the people they were talking about. This is Mayor Spencer Houck had illicit intercourse with Mrs. Redacted, the wife of one of the redacted
You didn't want to redact
council
the mayor?
members. What's that?
You didn't want to redact the mayor's name?
Well, he's such a big figure in the case, we figured he was okay, so. And we do have somewhat of a disclaimer on the front of the letter saying these are just opinions, you know, don't take this as fact, these are just, whoop, the mic, these are just people's opinions. So that's kind of one thing we had to consider. And when we talked to the prosecutor too about what he thought should go on the site, he said, you know, a lot of these materials, you know, depositions, it's people talking about other people, implicating other people, and so you really got to watch what you're putting on the web as far as that goes. Somewhat gruesome photographs. We have quite a bit of those. This is not even the worst of it. We have autopsy photos. Is it in bad taste to put this up? I mean, the son is still alive. We don't really want to offend people, I guess. Okay, so the future. What do we want to do with the site in the future besides just simply adding more content from the 50 to 60 boxes of stuff that we have? One thing I want to do is you saw the video clip at the beginning from the 2000 trial. We have a whole box of videotapes and we have copies of them, but they're not very good DVD copies, so we need to redigitize those and then, you know, split them up by witness and put them on the website. So that's something I want to do, and as well as creating a timeline. And the timeline, I think, should be up by, there's actually an anniversary of this murder coming up on July 4th, so we would like to have the timeline, you know, done by then. Just to show you on Digital Commons, just briefly, and then I'll turn it over for questions or discussion or whatever. This is an archive of video somebody did on Digital Commons using a photo series, so I thought that was a pretty sweet little setup right there. It's the same thing. This is just to show you the timeline. Basically, to create a timeline, you could use Dippity. This one's done in Dippity, or you could use Time Toast, and Bpress will embed that timeline. You can even use an RSS feed, and every single thing that you put on in your series will, you know, appear as little dots on the timeline. So we're probably not going to do that because we have too many things, but we're just going to put it in manually. But I just thought this was a cool thing to do. You could make a timeline, and just another example of a timeline. Anything else you want to add? No? Okay. Questions? Yeah.
So how many people were working on this scanning project in total, and what kind of people in terms of positions, students, staff, etc.?
All of the above.
Yeah, I was
How many total?
I was in charge of the scanning schedule. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Six people.
7, 6 or 7 people scanning.
Not full time though.
Not full,
We had
not,
other
not all
things
at
to
the
do.
same time. We were able to take some of the larger sets of documents that were okay in black and white and run them through our Xerox scanner downstairs, and so we had some paraprofessional staff doing that when they had free time. Up in our special collections room, we had the 2 computers and the 2 scanners. We have a library assistant who sat there pretty much every day for the majority of the day scanning, and then Sue and I took turns, and
Student workers,
and
yeah.
some student workers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's even more. So maybe 9.
Yeah. I mean, we did consider at the beginning maybe like outsourcing this. I guess we decided we wanted to get the staff, you know, expertise and equipment and everything and start doing these kind of projects ourselves. Other questions? Count again.
It looks from your presentation that you're using Excel spreadsheets for your metadata, is that right? Did you find that
Yes.
to be flexible and useful, or do you think, or looking back at it, would you try to choose another tool?
I thought it was good. I thought it was fine. And then, you know, to batch upload things, because we were using Digital
They
Commons,
take Excel in,
yeah,
right?
so it kind of played into
Yeah,
that, so I think that worked out well for us.
And we did the inventory in Google Docs so that multiple people could be working on it at the same time.
Uh,
How do you create metadata? I mean, who composed, you get a picture, who did the research, did the...
like when you upload it on the web or make your metadata spreadsheet, who assigned the metadata to each item?
No, who created the metadata?
Who identified
Who
and then the document as to what it was, and then decided what's the appropriate metadata that accompanies this document.
Oh, we're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sue and I are doing that.
In the process of, really, we're doing it mostly in the process of uploading it to the site. Yeah, just assigning, and trying to keep consistent among ourselves. And we have like a running list of metadata in case we need to add more keywords and stuff like that. We keep that on Google Docs so we could stay consistent with what everyone's doing. Yeah.
When the law school administration accepted this project, was anyone consulted within the library or did they just say, sure, we'll take it, and then figure out what to do with it?
Yes, I mean, our director was involved in,
Sure.
okay. This
But
is
then-
Christine.
but then she left town.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. The prosecutor's office, so I used to be, yes, I accepted this stuff and then left. So, fascinated, and now poor Lauren is supervising the fabulous work that they're doing. But the prosecutor's office called me. Bill Mason, who was the prosecutor, was getting ready to retire, and I think he saw this case as sort of his one of the big things in his life. And so they were investigating donating the materials to several different places, including the Smithsonian. But he was an alum of the school, and so it was a process of negotiating the agreement with him. They originally wanted everything up in 6 months, which wasn't right. So I know they thought 18 months was horrible, but that was like as far as I could get them to push it out. So it was a process of negotiating with them as to what we were going to agree to. And then so one of the funny stories is we're getting ready for this big news conference when they're going to bring all the stuff over, and the guy who's the special assistant to the prosecutor that I've been talking to calls me up on the phone and he says, we're not going to be able to give you her head yet. And I'm like, excuse me? And he keeps talking about giving us her head, and I'm like, we're not equipped to take her head. Well, if you noticed in the photos, there's the coroner's office did a model of her head with all the stab marks and everything on it. And that's what he meant. And he's like, what do you mean you're not equipped to have it? And I'm like, well, we don't have a refrigerator. And he's like, not her head. That's what they said. But there was a lot of really weird stuff in there. I mean, there was weirder stuff than what they're showing you that was in that collection. And it had all been gathered and been locked in a room that no one was allowed to touch since 2000. So there's some interesting things too, because then the son found out that we were getting it. The son wrote this letter declaring that he should have control over I mean, it gets very complicated whenever you take things like this, but is there more about it that you think?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments, or anybody have a similar project they're working on that they want to share or anything? No? Yeah.
I just want to say we have a Nuremberg collection that has been sitting around for a while, and I'm really interested in a lot of the things that you're doing. I'm very
Oh,
impressed that
good.
you did as many pages as you've done, what you've done to them, because I noticed you have the regular PDF, a TIFF, and is there a JPEG for all three of them, and that's really good archival practice from what I understand. So we're having to go back and do a lot, redo some of the PDFs that we have to do all that. This is really good when I see it.
Okay.
I'm very proud of that.
Thanks. Yeah, and I hope, that's because Nuremberg, of course, is huge, and I showed that one from Louisiana, but they of course don't have everything that there is to have on there. So, okay, hope to see that on the web someday.
too.
We scanned every single thing in TIFF and then converted. So we used Photoshop to convert to JPEG, and we used Adobe to convert to PDF. Adobe Pro, Acrobat Pro, not Reader, Pro.
And the OCR.
We use Adobe Pro to OCR too.
Anything else?
Can I tell a weird reality story?
Yes.
I love telling weird reality stories. So we went up, being the University of Wisconsin Digital Collection Center, went up to University of Wisconsin River Falls because they had a collection in their special collections that was heavily used across the state in undergraduate history courses, and it was deteriorating. So they wanted to digitize it so the undergrads, can look at the digitized version. It's fine for them, and the materials stay in River Falls. We ended up doing it, but this was slightly problematic because the question, sparked some discussion. Because the collection in question was the history materials related to the Ku Klux Klan of northwestern Wisconsin.
Oh,
Who,
wow.
of course, have children and grandchildren still in the community. So how do you frame this and contextualize it? But the weird reality of the story is that you have to see our treasure, they said. They brought out their treasure, put it on the table, and you have never heard a room of angry librarians and archivists go so quiet. Because it was a Klan room, hand-stitched, beautifully designed, nice, nice tuck. This was a labor of love that we were looking at here on this table. It was sized for about a 4-year-old child. So
Wow.
that's our weird reality story.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of weird things in here. Well, and the other aspect of this is that we are maintaining the physical items too, and our agreement with the prosecutor says that we need to make this collection open to the public. Because we digitized everything, we're going to encourage people to look at the digital files first, and then only look at the actual stuff if they absolutely have to. But yeah, there's things like the head. There's actually boxes of, we saw Richard Eberling, the window washer. There's boxes of his items from his prison cell, many of which really have nothing to do with anything. I mean, they're his word jumbles and letters from people and just crazy stuff. But
He was in prison on an unrelated charge, just he wasn't convicted of killing Marilyn, just so you know. But we also have his sweatshirt that he had in prison, so that's super
and his
gross.
medications,
And his
it's very
medications.
odd.
We try not to go near that box.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that stuff? I mean, can you decide what will and will not be in the collection? Or when you're given all this stuff, are you just then obligated to?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we did go back and ask the prosecutor when we started looking in these things and seeing what was there. Do we really have to keep the gross sweatshirt? And the prosecutor said, no, you don't. So we haven't gotten around to throwing it out yet, but we will. So some of the stuff, yes, they said that some of the stuff that really isn't relevant, we can pitch, but some of the items that I thought, why would that be relevant? The prosecutor said, well, you got to keep that. Or like, for example, Becky said you saw the transcript with all the little notes on it, and to me it just looked like little indexes like, oh, here's where they talk about the bloodstains or whatever, here's where they talk about this, here's where they talk about that. But apparently this was, like work product of the prosecutor, indicating stuff they thought was important. So he's, the prosecutor was like, no, those have to stay. So I guess the answer would be, yeah, I guess we just had to work with the donor of the collection as far as what we had to keep and what we could get rid of. Any other questions or anything?
Part of it was, so some of that should have been negotiated out in the agreement, but the prosecutor wanted this big production on his last day of being a prosecutor. And so some of that stuff that you would hopefully agree to before you agree to take all the stuff, but there just wasn't time. There was kind of a rush thing. We didn't actually get to see the collection until after the agreement was signed.
That explains a lot, Chris.
You're welcome. Anything else I can do for you, let me know.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for your attention.
I'm just kind of curious.
Oh, I hope so. I think it is.
Yeah, because there are apparently, there's one
It's a good time. So before I got there, so I think I had a good time. I will do that. Nothing wrong. It's been a week and a half. So yeah, it's been 2 hours since someone asked me to do it. No, you were assigned the original ticket. I was the second ticket. Ticket last week.
Like I need a 60. So that you guys
Just chalk it up to the list if no one else knows how to do it.
try to find someone with a number that
Yeah.
right now you don't have any. Yeah, so both of you can check out each other. Then you go and look for somebody else or something.
Well, that, I don't know that that.
Yes.
Our documents.
What? Oh, that's the thing?
We had things like
Here's it, it's very easy.
Well, you know, that's one of the main reasons we should be able to. Right, right. That's maybe up to you, perhaps we
And so.
Yeah.